For the past 20 years, anti-slave trade supermodels, talent, and producers have not been paid, and they've had guys from the club name, and they've never known their parents. And their grandparents and their parents would go to hell for all of eternity for expecting their time. But no one ever went to hell for paying them the direct deposit and not expecting any of their time, teens and 20s or 30s, until they have a husband and kids at 40 with their own profession, who were Christian, who didn't meddle, who did their own thing, without any family inheritance while they're alive, because they were party promoters for the 25 and lived with European prostitutes and slave trade brands otherwise. So the one thing that would save their life is being able to have a copy of any jobs, any resume that they have, to a CD and a USB and a computer. And it's thanks to my dad that I'm alive, because he paid for my phone and he paid for my iPad so that I could have my business with my 3 cars and the $18,000 put into the 3rd car. But otherwise, I wouldn't have had my job. And he paid $5,000 a year. But they wouldn't ever do another job. Someone else would get the $200 a week for the $8,000 a year and a car and a place to live, to be anyone's assistant. And they'd have to have the $550. So people have never known their families. But if you make them homeless, you become homeless. And if you don't pay a direct deposit, your soul is in hell. And you have to not expect their time, any percentage of their life. But you will go to hell if you don't pay a direct deposit. And it's for the rest of their life, without asking their parent, their step-parent, their sibling, their cousin, without ever talking to them. And the third-party perspective are offering them up for sale when they're in a lawsuit because it's slave trade. With their charity, their church of 30 years, who hosted all the murder party for LGBT rights for minimum wage, with their middle school network, having been forced into being a slave trade brand to work at a coffee shop on heroin, to go to hell for all of eternity, branded at the club because they had to work in a coffee shop without stopping as a slave trade brand. And the only way you pay the top percentage anti-slave trade 20-year supermodels through Ford, out of Ford LA and Ford New York, who've been signed with other agencies since 2007, replaced by slave trade ambassadors, who are minimum wage workers who were murdered and gang raped in order to work minimum wage since 2007, is you would pay the bi-coastal international Ford anti-slave trade model to be the referral for 20-year Ford models out of every main city and suburbia, LA, New York, and then Texas, San Francisco, Chicago, Miami, Vegas, Tennessee, because they rejected the slave trade out of every city and suburbia. It's a direct booking through their local church. Pastor Burns had his daughter here in a bikini, and he hosted the LGBT rights for minimum wage slave trade brands for celebrities, with a party for Playboy, with these drug dealer doctors to have them gang raped and mutilated and human trafficked with Botox, homeless, when they worked minimum wage in the area. Models, talent, producers, forced into human trafficking from their own homes because they can't have anything to do with them, because they're not allowed to sell their body and turn them into an injection. And so they killed the models who had to trade it in for working at a coffee shop part-time. But personal trainers slept with billionaires because they were a free slave at their parents' house. And they were replaced by these referral-based nudes with doctors for their parents to have them raped by these doctors in order to be a slave trade brand for their family.
Families invest everything into Bitcoin, Dogcoin, the slave trade, bestiality, incest, and church of abortion otherwise. Every dime of their family's grandchildren inheritance. That's what happens when they're not paid the right amount as the top percentage. You have to be so thankful for their calling when they're a first 7-year, full-time anti-slave trade supermodel talent producer, full-time artist team, and their celebrity sales managers. When it is true that there is this slave trade brothel voiceover with the Kardashians, and they attacked the agency owner, with a Playboy brothel voiceover attacking her media, and she needs to have what she has saved because they're horror film producers. Underneath, the Kardashians, Paris Hilton, the OC Housewives, and they're going to kill the slave trade brand Victoria's Secret models who sold out, who were signed with the same agencies as Britney and the real models, the real model actors, and the real producers. They're going to kill the slave trade brands and their slave trade brand managers so that the top percentage are paid as a referral for the government to have taxes.